So many of us get into this field because we just love animals. But there's a huge leap from just loving them to being a true professional they can count on. It takes way more than good intentions. You need a solid foundation. And in this explainer, we're going to build that foundation, piece by piece, using 5 pillars that are absolutely essential.
Okay, so let's get right to it. What is the difference between someone who just loves animals and a real professional advisor? I'll tell you what it's not. It's not about how much you care. It's about the process. The big difference is that solid professional foundation, one that's built on facts and evidence, not just guesswork.
And here's how we're going to do it. We've got 5 key pillars that every single pro needs to have in place. This is our game plan for today. We'll start with the nitty-gritty legal stuff and take it all the way through to our impact on the planet.
All right, first up, the Pro Advisor's Challenge. Look, making that jump from just being passionate to being a professional, well, that's a big deal. It carries a ton of responsibility. Every single piece of advice you give has a real-world impact on the animal's life, on your client, and on whether or not they're breaking the law. This is serious stuff, and it absolutely demands a professional mindset.
So that brings us to Pillar 1, and this is the bedrock of everything. You have to master the rules, the legislative framework. Every single thing you say, every recommendation you make has to be built on a rock-solid understanding of the law. I'm not kidding. This isn't just a nice-to-have, it's completely non-negotiable.
And yeah, if only it were as easy as knowing just one animal law, right? Nope. You've got to be on top of the legal requirements at 3 different levels: Commonwealth, state, and even down to your local council. Each one adds another layer you have to peel back and understand.
And just look at the scope of what we're talking about here. It's not just one thing. We're covering worker health and safety, specific animal welfare acts, the super complex laws about who can own what kind of animal, whether it's a dog, a kangaroo, or something exotic. And it doesn't stop there. You've got biosecurity obligations and even rules about how animals are transported. That's a lot. And the stakes? Wow, they could not be higher. This quote says it all, really. Giving advice based on bad or outdated info isn't just a simple mistake. You're potentially exposing your clients to prosecution, they could lose their licenses, and worst of all, it can lead to terrible outcomes for the animals. Your credibility, your entire career really hinges on getting this right from day one.
Okay, so you've got a handle on the law. That's great, but how do you actually make that work in the real world? That's where our second pillar comes in, turning all that dense legal jargon into practical, everyday policies for the workplace.
Now, this is a perfect example of why this is so important. Policy is definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Think about it. The policies you'd write for a pet shop, focusing on sales and housing for companion animals, are going to look totally different from the policies for a wildlife rehab center that's all about intake, quarantine, and release. You're working from the same legal principles, sure, but the day-to-day application is worlds apart. And this right here, this quote just nails it. The law sets the what. It gives you the minimum standard you have to meet. But your job, as the professional, is to figure out the how. It's up to you to create those specific, detailed day-to-day procedures that actually make compliance happen.
All right, on to Pillar 3. We've laid the groundwork with the law and the policies. Now let's bring it back to who this is all about. The animals. To give advice that actually works, you've got to learn to speak their language, and that means having deep, species-specific expertise.
What does that mean exactly? It means your advice can't be based on old wives' tales or just what you think might work. It has to be grounded in science, in evidence-based training methods. You have to know what's normal behavior for a parrot versus a python, because if you don't know what's normal, there's no way you can spot when something is wrong.
Exactly. Because giving out generic advice isn't just useless, it can actually be dangerous. Trying to apply what you know about dogs to, say, a lizard or a bird, that's a recipe for disaster. It leads to stress, it doesn't solve the problem, and it results in poor welfare for the animal. Your advice has to be tailored. It has to be specific.
Okay, moving right along to our 4th pillar, and this one's a big one. A real pro gets that they can't possibly know everything. You're not an island, you're part of this bigger ecosystem of experts, and knowing who to call for what and when is an absolutely critical skill. This little table breaks it down so clearly. Got a health concern? You call a vet for diagnosis and treatment. Need to know about the best kind of enclosure or food? You talk to your suppliers. They're the product experts. And if you need the latest on industry standards or compliance updates, that's what industry associations are for. Each one has a distinct, vital role.
And really, this is the bottom line, isn't it?
Having professional integrity means knowing your own limits. The ultimate goal is always to give the best, safest, most complete advice possible. And sometimes that means handing the client off to another expert in your network. That's what a true professional does.
And that brings us to our fifth and final pillar. This one really brings us into the modern era of animal care. We're talking about our environmental responsibility. Being a professional today means you also have to be a good steward of the environment.
And this isn't just a small thing. It means thinking about sustainability in everything you do. How you manage waste, sure, but also the products you source, how your facility is managed, and even understanding the impact your operation has on the local ecosystem and biodiversity. It's a whole picture kind of thing.
And the key takeaway here, and it's a big one, is that sustainability is not some optional add-on anymore. It's not a bonus. As this quote points out, it's now a standard part of professional practice. Your clients expect it, and your advice just isn't complete without considering it.
So, let's put it all together. There they are, your 5 pillars of success. 1. Master the rules. 2. Turn those rules into reality. 3. Speak their language. 4. Know your network. And 5. Build a greener footprint. See how they all connect? Together, they create this incredible system for professional excellence.
This whole framework, this is your foundation. This is what takes you from being someone who loves animals to being a credible, respected professional who makes a real impact. You have the blueprint. So the only question left is, are you ready to start building?